Okay, so to continue on to the whole situation that we talked about last week on the Shogun's Tent, on how Microsoft basically buying up the entire Western gaming industry bit by bit is actually the worst thing for the gaming industry in the West, of course, that's going on right now. Now, there has been a counterpoint to some of this. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying, listen, this is not meant to be a swipe at Alirx, okay? Alirx, I've been following this guy since for the last probably 10 years. He does go check out his channel if you haven't already. He has some really good shit. There's videos he talked about crappy ass games and shit like that. I think there was I think one of his first reviews was a shitty ass Transformers game that I think was released in Japan. But one of his highlight series is when he reviews bootleg games, like mostly Chinese bootlegs. And I'll be honest, there are some Chinese bootlegs that are pretty impressive, while most, well, pretty much standard quality you find in China. Read utter crap. But yeah, go check out Alirx's channel. His content's amazing, but he did bring up some point, and I think he's trying to ask a question, not shilling, because I would see that if a Western gaming industry shill was making this point, it'd probably be a lot more mean spirited than this tweet that Alirx provided here. He asks that if everyone is so concerned about a Microsoft monopoly in the gaming space right now, yet Nintendo has a monopoly in Japan and the Switch right now out, and no one seems to care about that. Selective outrage is a very real thing. Yeah. Now I would say some Nintendo fanboys have that selective outrage, but I'm gonna rebut this. Okay? Now I did post this a response to Ali right here, but I'm gonna go into greater detail, okay? Usually whenever Nintendo has a greater market share throughout the entire industry, it's usually by happenstance. Okay. Now, to explain this, let's do a little history lesson. Let's go back to 1983, year I was born. Also being the year that Atari slipped on a banana peel and plummeted. Yes, we're talking about the great video game crash of 1983, which pretty much wrecked console gaming for quite a few years. Actually, a couple years, because at that point, I think Atari released their 5600 console a year prior, and I looked at some footage from the 5600 compared to the 2600. I have to ask, what's the difference between those two? Other than the silly-looking controller. Jesus Christ, I mean, at least there was a stark difference between the 7800 and the 26 and 5600. No, wait, it's not 5600, it's 5200, sorry. So, when you looked at the 7800, which was sort of a successful system, but it was a drop compared to Nintendo's market share at the time. Their graphics have drastically improved from the 5200 and the 2600. Now, the 2600 and 5200 is like, what's the difference between those two? I don't see a difference. But getting back on point here, when the crash happened, a lot of Western gaming companies went either belly up or went into hibernation mode. Crap Division being one of them, ironically enough. But then what happened was, 2 years later, in '85, Nintendo brought their Famicom system, which is known as the NES here in the States, and they dominated the market until 1989, when Sega released their Genesis, or Mega Drive if you live in Europe. So, the key thing to remember here is, for that short time, for that 4-year run that Nintendo had on the gaming market, yeah, it was a monopoly, but it's actually due to happenstance. Okay, they weren't trying to buy out Sega. Really? I don't think Nintendo Japan would buy out Sega. They weren't doing that kind of shit. But you contrast to what's going on now with Microsoft basically buying up every Western developer and gaming company, AAA developer, I should say. If they buy Take-Two, I think the gaming industry here in the West is F-U-C-K-E-D fucked. Okay? And the sad part is, I think in the future, it's going to deem very, very problematic for the Western gaming development industry as a whole. Because Sony, I don't see them succeeding any further in the industry. I think they're going to be bowing out in a few years. Because their first party titles are just watered down trash. Okay? I mean, what's a good reason to own a PS5 now? I mean, they censored to the moon. They give in to the woke ideology of the West. Yeah, they moved all their gaming operations to LA. Pfft. Really stupid move in hindsight, because now you basically have to play by the wokies' rules, and now you're pretty much screwed. So I see, because of that mistake, Sony will never recover from this. They're going to bow out. Because now Microsoft is buying up everything, basically. Now, short term, it will be a boom for Microsoft. That means they'll control the entire market share of the Western gaming industry. Pretty much. That anything that's not indie or low key. But long term, with Phil Spencer wanting a social credit system, basically saying if you're banned here, you're banned everywhere. This can deem very troublesome for the industry going forward, because what will happen is Nintendo will provide that alternative. They probably won't go along with Phil Spencer's little plan to establish a social credit system among online gaming, or gaming in general. Because if you think about it, this is why it's important to have physical copies, folks. Because if you have all your games on the cloud or all downloaded, and you get the ban hammer because some they them got pissy about something, you're screwed, man. You might have no choice but to sail the high seas. But going forward, this could spell trouble for them, because I'll tell you why. Nintendo will provide that alternative. They'll focus on their games. They're not partisan or anything. Hell, anything that looks to start some partisan shit, they crush that immediately, just as much as they would any video, that's any Nintendo game that's been monetized on YouTube. Yeah, they don't play that shit. Now, think of what you will about a lot of the of Nintendo America, but let's just say Nintendo Japan, the mothership, if you will, has them on a pretty short leash. So, and also the only reason for their dominance in Japan right now is because, like I said, Sony pretty much pissed on Japanese developers. So Japanese developers, knowing they have nowhere else to go to, they went to Nintendo. Nintendo took them in. They've been pretty hands-off when it comes to censorship, and they have gained dominant market share just because of it. It's just the same situation like it was in '83. They gained market domination in Japan by happenstance, and I will guarantee you we're going to be reliving that 1985 to 1989 era pretty soon, because the woke ideology of Microsoft, their censorious policies, the fact they want to bring in social credit into gaming, that not only the fact that they have unfinished releases, which takes like 2 years to patch into playability. Now they're going into NFT scams, and of course they still continue with the microtransaction grift. And let's face it, any game with microtransactions is just a scam, unless of course the only thing you got to bring to the table, and this is where a lot of the Japanese developers are smart about this: promise titties. Gotcha games have this good model when it comes to microtransactions and getting money from them. Just offer fan service in exchange for them sweet shekels. I mean, hell, it's pretty much the same thing a lot of lewd cosplayers do. Shit, but Microsoft, they're basically tone deaf to their audience. In fact, they just want to keep listening to the they, thems, the blue hairs, the Saint Anitas, the foreskins of the world. And it's going to be to their own detriment, because if you have an alternative out there that's going to provide, hey, come in, we're not going to judge you, we like you. Well, it won't bode well for Microsoft now, would it? But I do understand where Ali is coming from in this, but I would say the only reason no one's complaining about the monopoly that Nintendo virtually has in the Japanese market is because it's basically a monopoly by circumstance, because everyone else is shooting themselves in the foot trying to stab each other. Read Sony, and like I said, and if shit keeps going on with Microsoft, them being so avaricious, they're tone deaf, and they're just thinking everyone's just going to consume their product. You're going to go the way of Atari there, Microsoft. Yeah, sure, you won't go out of business, but your gaming division, it'll probably be a rump state at best. Jesus Christ, but anyway, I think that's all I'm going to say about that. Don't forget, I will be posting the new part 2 of Springtime for Helen later tonight. Yeah, I'm going to be doing the recording at 8 Central. Again, it will not be live streamed, and it will be on the Chainsaw Media channel. Now, as for any arcade streams going forward, I'm pretty much drawing a blank. I'm thinking I'll do one tomorrow, but I'm going to be cutting back on the arcade streams going forward, because I've taken up some shifts at work, because right now I'm in a mad dash to get my car fixed. It's going to cost me a few grand to do that, but I mean, sure, I would put a GoFundMe, but I'm sure those assholes will strike my ass down. But still, the best way you can support me is you like, you subscribe, you ring that bell, you leave comments, tell your father, tell your brother, tell your mother, tell your side chick, hell, tell the prostitute you pay $100 for a blowy. Tell your gerbil, tell your monkey. Yeah, like Cassandra Fairbanks does. I mean, I don't know why she's so obsessed with monkeys now. Wait a minute, she doesn't go by Fairbanks anymore, or does she? She goes by McDonald? Yeah, because she got married and shit. But anyway. So yeah, so be on the lookout for that. And as for the Shogun's tent this week, well, I still gotta talk to Martina, see if she's set to come on, because if not, we'll probably be doing a normal stream come Thursday. So I think that's it. So until then, I'll talk to you later. And remember, experge factus delendus est. Take care.